everyone, welcome to the third episode of the Coffee Chat with Vivian series. First of all, thank you everyone who have made it so far into the series. I hope you have all found this somewhat helpful. As always, if you have not watched the first episode of this series, click on the link right here where I detail my background and my experiences. Today I'll be sharing how I got my Cisco Business Analyst Internship. First, I'll start with my background. A little bit about my background. I went to Fordham University in New York City, majoring in marketing, minoring in computer science, and having a concentration in marketing analytics. Now I'm going to Columbia University's Business Analytics graduate program to get my master's degree. I have had multiple internships across industries and different types of positions, including in entertainment, fashion, and beauty. I have an entire video dedicated to my background, so click here if you guys would like to know more about my past experiences. In the meantime, here's the resume I used to get my internship at Cisco. So next I'll go into timeline. I've actually never interned at a major tech company, so when I applied, I had no idea when this internship was for. Because they started recruiting in September, I originally thought this internship was for the fall term. This brings me to my next point. Make sure you guys start early and cast a wide net. I spoke with many tech industry professionals, and they all suggested starting applying in September, as it is when the big techs start recruiting. Next, my application. Application was pretty standard, where I submitted my resume for the position I was interested in. The only difference was in the location, but because of the COVID's work from home policy, this gave me a greater flexibility and opportunity to compete for more positions. Going into the interview process, I was first invited to an initial phone screen with a recruiter where I answered some basic questions about my background and my eligibility to work. I then had 3 rounds of interviews with the broader logistics and services team. The first interview was with 2 managers working directly on the day-to-day of the services and logistics department. I actually got grilled at this interview because it was like a panel situation, 2 people versus 1, and it was pretty intimidating. This interview consisted mainly of behavioral questions like, why do you want to work here? What makes you a good fit? And what do you know about Cisco, and where do you see yourself in 5 years? For these questions, I suggest you guys to prepare. Write out exactly what you want to say and make sure you're getting your point across in a clear and concise way. It is important to speak with confidence and believe in what you say, because people can really tell when you're giving them BS, and these people have been doing interviews and interviewing many people for many years, so make sure you really truly believe what you're saying. And also, it is important to include some past experiences, projects, and applicable skills in your answers. In terms of analytical questions, they gave me a scenario question and asked how I would approach to solve this business problem and derive valuable insights. So my best advice here is, first, do not panic, because I know I got really nervous when I'm asked these types of questions. You kind of get overwhelmed and you don't know how to approach it. It is always useful to repeat some key facts that interviewers have given you. This gives you time to digest the information and think through your answers. You never want to jump right in and start rambling. You want to go from a top to bottom approach. What problem are we trying to solve here? What information do we need to solve these problems? And how do we get those informations? Bonus, if you want to highlight some potential challenges your approach might offer and offer some possible solutions to these problems. These are all great ways to answer these questions, because it shows that you have analytical skills and the ability to think critically. The second interview was with the manager of business intelligence. This was a little bit more laid back. She asked me similar behavior questions, but also knew if I asked how to use SQL. I was really honest with her about my SQL skills, which are very limited to school and have never been used in a real world setting. And I think it is important to be truthful, because companies don't expect you to be an expert in these areas. They want to know you have some knowledge and an appetite to really truly learn these languages, to learn these skills at the job itself. So highlight your transferable skills and show your eagerness to learn. It is one thing to fluff up your experience, but another to lie and say you know something when you don't. So do not do that. So the last interview was with the director of global service logistics and operations. Interestingly, he was actually the most chill, which I didn't expect, because I thought as you go higher up, they would ask you more challenging questions. But after speaking to some people, they said that the last round of interview is usually used to convince you to join the team, because they want you on the team and they want someone to convince you to join the company. So he asked me questions about myself, and halfway through the answers, he cut me off and said he was sure that I was a good fit, which I was super surprised about. He asked if I had any questions about there was still 15 minutes left of the interview, and he asked me if I had any questions. So I asked him a prepared list of questions, and he talked for the remaining 20 minutes about himself. So going into the internship offer, this was actually the longest interview process I have been in. The entire interview process started in September and ended in November. I got my offer letter in November for an internship in June, which is really far ahead. This process was so long that there were some organizational changes and people movements that I actually ended up switching teams and managers. So next, going into my tips for interviewing. Tip number 1 is to highlight your past experiences in your answers. This can be brought forth in a story form where you talk about your leadership positions, past experiences, and projects you have worked on. You want to explain what it is about, what you did, and what impact it made, and what you learned. You don't just want to say, I have analytical skills, but you really want to demonstrate and you want to explain it so it is more impactful and meaningful to the interviewers. Tip number 2 is to be genuine and excited. Don't be afraid to be vulnerable and detailing how you struggle. This point is to highlight how you're able to triumph over challenges and how it made you ultimately better and stronger. You want to sound excited and attentive, and don't forget to smile and nod, and don't overlook the good impact of good energy. Tip number 3 is to use the full time of your interview. You want to be thorough and conscious of your answer, so slow down. Usually they'll leave a 10-minute gap at the end of your interview to ask if you have any questions for them, and this is your one last opportunity to ask your interviewers questions about themselves and about the company. You want to build that interpersonal connection and add on your experience when given the opportunity. For example, I usually ask what they love about their job, and they'll say something like, I love working in a team setting, and I usually would be like, I definitely agree, because during my internship at NBC Universal, I had the opportunity to cross-collaborate on analytical projects, and it was an extremely rewarding experience because while I was on the publishing side, I got to work with people on the audience insights team where I was able to sharpen my SQL skills and utilize my Tableau skills to create a useful dashboard to help management understand our insights. Thank you everyone for watching the 3rd episode of the Coffee Chat. As always, feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn and comment below any questions you guys have.